Hey guys, Over Obsessive Marvel fan here. Today I'm going to be talking about just the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, and I thought to kill two birds with one stone, I'll discuss the Marc Webb Spider-Man stories as well, which is the two amazing Spider-Man films. You might be wondering, I say discussion, what am I really going to be talking about? So I'm going to be talking about the reasons why the franchises couldn't continue, some of the original ideas for some of the films in that franchise, what went wrong, and why I love them, and literally just the fact that they're two of my favourite franchises, and unfortunately got taken over obviously and ruined and stuff. And obviously now we have Tom Holland playing as Peter Parker in the most perfect place the MCU, which has been waited for years, so at least something came out of the second screw up. But mainly for the starting, I'm going to be talking about Sam Raimi one, and before babbling on, I'm just going to basically get into it before I go over the running time again. So, I think the first Spider-Man film, the 2002 one, where Spider-Man fights Green Goblin, that's a classic. It's not everybody's favourite, but it's a classic film. It sees Peter Parker become Spider-Man, he takes on Green Goblin. That's a great film. One or two things I could have maybe done differently. 75% of me wants to say no, because it's a decent film. I don't see any flaws with it. You've got Peter Parker, it is a bit slow, and there are some things you would rather not see in it, you'd rather go into it, but I think all of it just works collaboratively, and overall it just works out great, even with quite a lot of the scenes that are boring or shit. But I think it was fine. Spider-Man 2 was never really my favourite. I thought they could have maybe added another villain in there or something, but they pretty much did that with Harry Osborn becoming New Goblin, which doesn't actually officially happen until Spider-Man 3. But with Dr. Octopus, everyone says they love it, and I've grown to love it too, watching it back more and more and more, and I think it's a great evolved film with Peter Parker being Spider-Man. I don't see any flaws with that one either. Then we cut to Spider-Man 3. I loved that film. It was my favourite in the trilogy because it had more villains, more of a story. Everything was all over the place, but it all ended up connecting by the end of it. But everybody hated it for that reason. Watching it back, I realised why. Not only does Peter Parker do this weird emo dance, which really doesn't suit his character at all and is partly the reason the film sucked, but also because behind the scenes for the film is more to the reason why it sucked. Because Sony wanted Venom in the movie. I think Sony wanted Venom in the movie, but the original plan was that Sam Raimi was going to use Sandman, and Sandman was going to be the only villain. I think if he was the only villain in it, we wouldn't be where we are today with Tom Holland in the MCU, which is 50% a sin, 50% the greatest thing ever. So I believe their plan was to probably have Sandman in this film and then maybe Venom in the next one, but no, they decided to have both, which sounds cool when you think about it behind the scenes, but then when you watch the actual film, you see how that really didn't work, because they had one storyline where Peter Parker was learning the truth about his uncle's death and then avenging it by dealing with the criminal Flint Marko who becomes Sandman, before and after he discovers this, during of which he gets attacked by the Venom symbiote and becomes this crazy person with very bad evil anger issues, which kind of works when it comes to avenging Uncle Ben, because he wouldn't attempt to kill someone or get really angry about it when he knows it's wrong with the Venom symbiote, so that kind of worked. But then you've also got the storyline that's been evolving throughout the trilogy, which is Harry Osborn becoming the new Green Goblin, or should I just say New Goblin, another supervillain who faces off against Peter Parker's Spider-Man in the comics, which is probably something they should have done. I think the film should have literally just been the whole New Goblin thing, and then Sandman is the real villain of the film who they team up to fight at the end, and then Harry Osborn dies or something, and then Flint Marko redeems himself and apologises, and Peter sees it's an accident or something, and then that scene happens. And then that's it, and then Venom is left to Spider-Man 4. Because you would have had less to worry about, and everything would have been fine. I think without the whole Venom, Gwen Stacy, Captain Stacy, Eddie Brock stuff, I think the film would have been perfect. But I love the film. But now we're talking about what the film franchise left behind, regardless to what it had. So, in terms of the Sam Raimi films, the fourth film was planned for it to open with Spider-Man fighting all these B-list antagonists who would never be main antagonists in films, such as Rhino in his traditional onesie costume, Shocker, Electro, Kraven the Hunter, I believe, and one or two other foes. And then Mysterio is kind of like the peak of all these villains, and he's played by Bruce Campbell, who makes his cameo in all three Spider-Man films. In the first film, he was the guy who gave Spider-Man his name. In the second film, he's the guy who gets the tickets and then tells people to, he stands outside the doors whilst the theatre show's on. And then in the third film, he's the receptionist at that French restaurant. And now in this one, he's going to be Mysterio, who would have played a fairly large cameo compared to the rest of the B-list villains. But Mysterio's not a B-list villain, he's an A-list, but he would have appeared in a big scene at the beginning where he gets arrested. The film evolves with Spider-Man fighting Adrian Toomes, aka the Vulture, and Felicia Hardy, who would have been known as the Vulturess rather than Black Cat, and they would have teamed up together to take on Spider-Man. Dr. Curtis Connors would have also become Lizard in the film as well, and the film would have probably focused on Peter Parker still evolving as Spider-Man, as his hero, fighting new foes that give him more greater challenges, and obviously fixing his relationship with Mary Jane Watson after the events of Spider-Man 3 as well. There was a rumour that Carnage was going to be in the movie, but I don't think he will be. If so, that'll be probably something that sets up Spider-Man 5, because I know they had plans for like Spider-Man 5 and 6 and stuff, so the way I would have gone with Spider-Man 5, I don't really know much about it, but I think characters like, again, Kraven the Hunter and Carnage were probably going to be in Spider-Man 6 and 5 and 6 and stuff, and maybe even the Sinister Six for Spider-Man 6, because it's kind of fitting as it's the 6th film and there's 6 villains. But yeah, that's how I would have gone. Apart from anything else, I don't know. I think a part of me these days feels like maybe one villain per film is the best thing, but then doing a few has always been something I've appreciated, which is why I love Spider-Man 3 as well. But yeah, I would have loved to see that franchise continue, but obviously Sam Raimi and Sony's fallouts ruined it all, but then that's obviously what led on to Sony's plans to do the reboot anyway with Marc Webb, no pun intended, that's actually his last name, which is quite funny, who directed The Amazing Spider-Man. Now, the first Amazing Spider-Man film was just as shit as how the first 2 Sam Raimi films bored me because of their stereotypicalness, specifically the second one. But his fight with Lizard, being Dr. Curtis Connors, makes up for the fact that we didn't have a Spider-Man 4, as well as makes up for the fact that we didn't see Dr. Curtis Connors as Lizard in that movie. But the film overall was kind of just a boring new origin with an actor who didn't seem very nerdy at all to play the role of Peter Parker. The film was okay, it wasn't great, and it set up a more storyline which is more intriguing. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 I preferred much more. And it reminded me of the old classical like Spider-Man 3 and some of the other Spider-Man movies, where Peter Parker fights Electro, who would have been one of those B-list villains, who actually becomes an A-list villain, and he also fights Harry Osborn as the Green Goblin in that universe. We get to see that character evolve properly as an antagonist. Now, I used to think Harry Osborn's Green Goblin was the main antagonist to the film, and Electro would start out as the main antagonist turned secondary antagonist. However, that didn't actually work. So it actually turned out to be the other way around. And then obviously you get the dramatic Gwen Stacy death at the end of the film. And then that sets up the Spider-Man 3 we never got, with Rhino appearing at the end of the movie. So we get Rhino as well. So this kind of all... the Amazing Spider-Man films make up for the A and B list villains that we didn't get in Spider-Man 4, in the original one. But then obviously Andrew Garfield got jet lag when he was on his way to a press conference to announce Amazing Spider-Man 3, and therefore the project got cancelled. He got fired and the project got cancelled. And Sony and Marvel were always in debates of bringing Spider-Man to the Marvel, the official proper Marvel, who do the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which are now obviously owned by Disney. So Spider-Man then becomes their property for now, and then obviously in 2017 we got the replacement for the Amazing Spider-Man 3, which would have seen Spider-Man fight the Vulture. We see Spider-Man fight the Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming, now played by Tom Holland. But obviously he made his debut a year earlier, fighting with the Avengers in Captain America Civil War, and then again with the Avengers in Avengers Infinity War, fighting Thanos. So that's where we're up to speed these days. In terms of the Amazing Spider-Man 3, because I've gone off track, so I like talking about the progress. Amazing Spider-Man 3 would have seen Peter Parker grieve over Gwen Stacy's death, but he would have conjured up a formula that's something that he'd been kind of like trying to work on for years. Peter Parker had been trying to work on for years or something, based off some of his father's like science and experiments and tests that he's done over the years. And he would have found a formula which would have resurrected people from the dead, and he resurrects. Well, I don't know about Uncle Ben. I think Uncle Ben probably would have been resurrected, or at least some point in the film. But it was confirmed that Gwen Stacy and her father would have both been resurrected. But Gwen Stacy would have ended up becoming Carnage, which is something Peter Parker's Spider-Man would have had to deal with and fight. Other than that, obviously, Rhino would have returned, and so would have Harry Osborn's Green Goblin as bad guys for Spider-Man to fight, and possibly we would have finally met the Gentleman as well. So that was the plan for Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man 3 could have also possibly set up the Sinister Six as well, because I knew the Venom and Sinister Six films were planned for that Amazing Spider-Man universe. But obviously, they never came to be. But we are getting a Venom film. Whether it's set in the Amazing Spider-Man universe or the MCU, we won't know until we see the film. There has been connections to it made by Thor, and a Luke Cage reference, where the actor Bill Fisher was going to be in that film, whose character left during Luke Cage 2 to go to visit some sick person in San Francisco. Well, technically Eddie Brock or Venom or whoever comes from that science lab, which is where his character's going or coming from, is kind of sick, and it's set in San Francisco. So if that's a direct reference, I don't know. There was another reference made with Thor to the film, so it probably is set in the MCU, but you don't know, because they did say they want to have Spider-Man down the line as well, which is why they're trying to make it a PG-13 rating. But anyway, I'm going off topic now. Yeah, Venom and Sinister Six were meant for that franchise, so Sinister Six was either going to be set before or after Amazing Spider-Man 3, but it will be referenced in the film if they made it. And that would have included Vulture, Kraven the Hunter, Mysterio, as well as obviously Green Goblin and Rhino, and a few other characters. I don't think there was rumours that Electro wasn't dead and he was going to come back, but I don't think that's going to happen. Or even if it does, it will be a secret. It will be a secret for now, but obviously it will always be a secret because we'll never know the answer, because they're not going to continue with that franchise unless they do. Unless this Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse film that comes out at the end of this year sets up that idea, so they could do that in the MCU and bring Sam Raimi and Marc Webb's Spider-Mans back to life. Because I know another YouTuber, Comic Book Cast 2 or Emergency Awesome, I think it was, said about their theory of what that film would be like, and it was a fucking amazing idea. Sorry for my language. But yeah, I think that's it. I've covered it quite quickly, actually. I can't really think of anything else to say. Obviously, they were going to do an Amazing Spider-Man 4 in 2018, this year. And that probably would have either introduced the Sinister Six or the Gentleman character, and that would have continued the story, because they were thinking about 5 and 6 as well, I think they were thinking of. They were going to really expand it, as well as the spin-offs Venom and Sinister Six and stuff. I think if either of those franchises had continued, fans would be much more satisfied with the Spider-Man franchises, and it would have been on a better note, regardless to the mistakes and the other flaws that would have happened anyway. But yeah, I think I've quickly covered it. Maybe I should talk faster more often, just as long as you guys know what I'm saying. If you don't and you hate these videos, be sure to leave a comment. Also, I do apologise, because the last 2 videos that have come out, I sound really fuzzy. It's usually because I speak out quite loudly, because I try and sound all enthusiastic, because when I did the first couple of videos I'm quite quieter and drony, which is why they're not so. I do apologise about that. If you find that an issue, whatever, please leave a comment. I'd rather know, rather than have a video be watched for 2 seconds and then the audience is like, no, they don't want to listen to it like that. So I'd rather know. Again, if this video is the same, I do apologise. I'm trying to not raise my voice as much and talk more away from the mics and the cameras, so you can still hear me, but I don't sound fuzzy. And that's probably what's happened there, because I've stood away from it. But now I'm coming closer, so that's probably why. Anyway, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to these videos, and tell your friends and everything, because obviously likes and subscribers is what any YouTuber wants, and it's what I want. I know I'm not as big as others that have more knowledge and stuff like that, but it would be nice to get some recognition. Please also do check out my other YouTube channels that I'm a part of, such as Horizon Media UK and Valiant Digital, and the Horizon Extra channel, where me and my mate, you'll get to see me in person, and me and my mates obviously do crazy shit, such as eat Carolina Reapers and stuff like that. But the video is about to end because the 15-minute limit, so I'll just say goodbye to now, and I'll see you in the next video, which I don't know what it is yet, but it'll be on Instagram. See you later, guys. Bye bye.